Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see all these people here tonight. Very good. We are going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then have a 10-second silence. And I guess I should tell you that today's date is May 11th. Call forward. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please stand for 10 seconds and remember Larry DeWeck and also Jack DeWeck. You may be seated.
I was going to catch you.
Tina, would you please call the roll?
Oh, I got him.
Oh my gosh.
Here.
Commissioner Houseman.
Here.
Vice Mayor McCall.
Here.
Commissioner Hannah.
Here.
Mayor Kennedy.
Here, thank you. Our sheriffs are here tonight. Your report is online. Is there anything that you wanted to come up tonight and say, or are we, come on up?
Good evening, guys. Good to be back here. Sergeant LaFave, for those who don't know me. Looking at this month's stat, they are down from last month, so that's always a positive. The motor vehicle theft you see on there actually was a one that was reported stolen. We later found it parked at a different beach access, so it wasn't actually stolen after all. It tends to happen. So that is a motor vehicle theft from this month. We have been noticing an increase in traffic crashes. We're working on that through traffic enforcement. You'll see our traffic numbers going up. We're working on it. We are noticing that. We also are noticing a large increase in the amount of traffic out here, which is also a positive thing. A lot of people out on the beach. Weather's getting better, and people are getting out and going to businesses again. So that's good news. So, you guys have any questions on the monthly report? You guys have all seen it. The April one just came out today. I hope everybody saw the newest one today that I just got today.
Does anyone have any questions for the sheriff?
Really great.
Hearing none, thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you.
I'd also like to tell the audience that if you come 15 minutes early, the sheriff will be here and you can talk to them privately if you have any questions for them. Our report of the Pinellas Central Fire and Rescue is online, and next month they will be back with us, and they will be giving their report to us in person, so just so you know that. With that, Greg, would you come center for us?
Sure. Good evening. Glad to have everybody back in the same room and actually see your smiling faces. I'd ask while I'm speaking for representatives of A2K and the homeowners to come up behind me. Dean, this is one of those moments where you're not going to like me, but I'll ask you to come up here.
A2K, come forward
come on up.
with Greg and the homeowners if you're here.
This July, I'll celebrate my 8th anniversary with the city. And one of the people that I want to recognize tonight is someone that served the city for 42 years. Dean, and we all know Dean. Dean is most importantly is a husband, a father, a grandfather, and 2 grandchildren. February the 2nd, I issued an email to all the staff and the commission recognizing Dean for 42 years of service. And the amazing thing, he's got more hair than I have. And the cool thing, I was going to kind of run over some things about Dean that you may or may not know. Dean grew up in IRB. He grew up on 18th Avenue. He worked summers 77 and 78 and 78 and 79 while he was still in high school. In 1979, he was hired full-time to work for the city. In 1980, and you probably forgot this is like a big moment in your career, he got a pay raise from $3.25 to $3.60 per hour. During the course of his career, he's been a crew chief, a supervisor of utilities, the acting public works director, assistant public works director, and in April of, not April, but in 1998, he was appointed as public services director. He retired after 35 years, and he was leaving about the time I got here. Hopefully that had nothing to do with me coming in, but he was retiring, and he left for a few months, and I convinced him to come back, and he wanted to come back, and he's been with me the whole time I've been here. And one of the things that I felt that was interesting, I looked through Dean's personnel file, and if somebody's worked for an organization for 42 years, their personnel file is like that thick. And that always makes me nervous because I've managed a lot of people in my career, and usually when you have a personnel file that thick, you start flipping through and you'll see the person was written up for this, sent off this. Dean has none of that in his file. So throughout the file, I found this it was consistent. And this is how to describe Dean. That's awesome. Very conscientious, exceptional hard worker, ability to lead, rely on his judgment, service to the community, solid and experienced hand in charge of public services. And one thing that I found, we do evaluations every spring that Chuck Coward wrote, which I think just kind of sums up Dean. He wrote, "It's abundantly clear that you attained a position of trust with the city commission and the citizens of this community, and it appears that this position of trust was attained the old-fashioned way. You earned it." And that's what Dean has done. During his 42 years, he successfully played an important role in dealing with hurricanes, and I'm going to leave out a lot of things: hurricanes, tropical storms, sewer breaks, water breaks, capital improvement projects, red tides, public services, solid waste employee management issues, beach renourishment, revolving door city managers. Now, there was a time back 15 years ago where you had a manager for 6 months and they left for some reason, and he dealt with city commission meetings that lasted to midnight, which don't ever do that again. Street parades, boat parades, A2K events, IRB homeowners events, IRB Rotary functions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, in government service, it's always easy to nitpick, and here at IRB, we want to be the best of the best, and I just felt it was appropriate to recognize Dean, and I invited A2K and the homeowners, and they're going to make their own comments, but I just want to say publicly that 42 years of your life is a big thing. And Dean, I appreciate you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Diane Flagg, Nan Jensen, and we're here to present something to Dean Elmquist. Action 2000's been around for 22 years. We just celebrated our anniversary. And through all those years, Dean, you've been a part of our success and a part of all the beautification projects and Oktoberfest growing and growing and growing, and we couldn't have done it without you. Our success is because of you and your help with all the wonderful volunteers that we have. So our little way of saying thank you, and we appreciate all that you do in the city and your guidance and helping us out of things sometimes as we've had growing pains. It's very much appreciated. So Nan will present you with our awards.
Yes, and we certainly look forward to more years. I know 42 is a lot of years to put into an organization, but we look forward to working with you. Not maybe 42 more, but a few more perhaps. So Dean, with that, we want to just say we're giving you a plaque along with a gift card with our appreciation and in recognition of your commitment and dedication. Thank you for helping us to make a difference and for supporting your staff to help us make a difference. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
My name is Mary Beth Dunn with the IRB Homeowners Association, and I don't know how I can follow what everybody said about Dean, but I certainly second that. You've been wonderful through the years. You've helped us out. We wouldn't be able to do what we've done. We wouldn't be able to raise the money that we've raised without your help. And inevitably, something always goes wrong putting on these events. But I can tell you, when I see the city truck coming around the corner and I see Dean's smiling face behind it, I sigh a relief, and I know everything's going to be okay. So I appreciate all your help, and I hope to continue working with you. I sat on your award. So we too also would like to present you with this award. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Greg. I appreciate that. I just like to say I've been blessed in my life, and this is a great place. It's a great team. It's not just one person; it's everybody here, and all the residents should be proud of the staff that they employ and stuff like that. And I look forward to continuing on working. And I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much.
Do any of the commissioners, you want to add anything at this time for Dean? Or we all feel the same, or you want to wait till you?
There's a consensus.
Okay. With that, we're going to go to public comment. Any member of the audience may come forward, give his or her name and address, and state any comment or concern that he or she may have regarding any matter over which the city commission has control, excluding agenda items. All statements made to the city commission shall be made to the city commission as a whole and not directed to any individual city commission member. And no personal or slanderous remarks shall be permitted, no speaker shall be interrupted, and no debate shall take place between the speaker and the city commission. Thank you. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, how are you? I just had cataract surgery and I can't see any of you, so that's even great. I hadn't planned to make any comments under citizen comments, but I'm here for the parking, so I thought, what the hell.
Nancy, state your name.
Oh, Nancy Obarski, 708 Beach Trail. I have been going to the county commission meetings, and I have been boring them every other week with 3 minutes about the beach easement situation, trying to give them enough information about how the beachfront owners really feel about this whole thing. And I was really happy to see at the last meeting on their legislative agenda, they actually added the issue to work it through the Florida legislature and to start getting active about opposing the Army Corps instead of the beachfront owners. I think they've now seen that the bad guys are not us. There was an article written recently in a local paper about the beach easement issue, and it sort of gave you the idea that we are opposing the language in the easement, and that isn't the truth at all. I mean, most of us are opposing the easements, period. We don't think those easements should be requested. They're using, as you know, the Water Resources Development Act of 1986 because you can't put sand on private property using federal funds, and that's what they're claiming they're going to do. But the truth is, they're not going to put 1 grain of sand landward of that ECL. So they're hiding behind this Water Resources Development Act, in my opinion, to get out of paying the bill. And we can't not allow them to get out of paying the bill for a 50-year, this project of ours was authorized for 50 years by Congress. And I think they don't have the money, and they're trying to hide behind this Water Resources Development Act. I gave the commission an example of, I leave their meeting and I'm going the speed limit and a cop pulls me over. And he says, I'm going to give you a ticket for speeding. And I said, well, but I wasn't speeding. He said, no, but I know you're going to speed next week. And that is what they're trying to do with this Water Resources Development Act. They're trying to apply it to future activity instead of to the next beach renourishment. And hopefully enough people are going to take them on that they're going to back off or come up with another reason. But Water Resources Development doesn't do it for most of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Is there anyone else who'd like to come up at this time? Please come forward. Jay, come on up.
Evening, everyone. Congratulations. Our paths have crossed in the past. Hello, everybody. I'm Jay Downing from JD's Restaurant Lounge up in Indian Rocks. You guys have been real gracious about the outside patio, portable kind of, I guess. Been approached the other day. Need to take it down. So, what I'm here and have been talking with Mike, code enforcer, and Hetty, trying to get the ball rolling and putting up some ballards, taking some outside parking that I have used, for partially during the COVID Act. People are really still concerned about outside seating. I have relocated a bunch of tables from inside the dining room to put outside in a couple of parking places. So I'm moving forward with trying to put up the ballards, and what I'm asking for is maybe a hardship thing for 30 days to keep it until I can get the ball rolling with the building department and going forward with getting a permit and everything. This is what I'm asking from all of you. I don't know if you can do anything for me, but I do have something for Hetty that she's been requesting, and I'd like to give this to her, that package. This is some of the stuff we discussed about parking, liquor license, that kind of stuff. Okay? But I was told to talk to, and I have been in the past. So anyhow, you guys are all been cordial and everything, been real nice. Hopefully you can help me do something, and maybe I'll call Mike tomorrow or something. You guys can all kind of chit chat, because come tomorrow, Wednesday, technically I'm supposed to take everything down. I'm hoping that I don't have to. It's a real plus out there. People like to sit outside. So I'm thinking I'm within max of everything. Like I said, I've relocated tables from inside to outside to accommodate everybody. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Congratulations.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at this time? Please come forward. Hi, Don.
Don House, 2104 Beach Trail. First off, the great thing about masks, even though I've had both shots, is that you can do the Nancy Pelosi, cover up your neck, okay? So everybody knows a good plastic surgeon. I'm ready for it. It's 70 years old. I'm just saying, okay? So I wasn't going to say anything either, but Nancy brought up about the beach easements and all that, and I've been following stuff. Back when the first easement came out, the first easement request, I was running against our current mayor, and I said, I wouldn't sign that easement, and I wouldn't have signed that easement. And so got a lot of flack on it, and then our then mayor was just saying, well, just sign it. He was telling everybody in town just to sign the easement. And now we're into our second easement, which I wouldn't sign either. And our then past mayor was, from what I understand, trying to get other people to sign the easement. He was recruiting people to try and sign the easement so we could get some sand. It's odd that our past mayor, as of yesterday, the day before yesterday, I want to check it every day, had not signed the easement. So it's kind of weird that I understand that there's a few people that, a cultish brand that runs the town, but there's a lot of things that we all have to look at, and every time I walk in here, I know I'm the smartest guy in the room about something, but I know that everybody else in this room is the smartest person in this room about something. And what I have found that as we come to this little pulpit, or whatever you want to call this, and we spout our 3 minutes, we're like, okay, say your 3 minutes, then go down and shut up and sit down. And our views, if we're not in the cult, are not acknowledged. And I think part of what's going to happen tonight is an issue that's later on down the line, is that nobody was listening as we were talking. And a lot of things could be avoided if just listen every now and then, because we're not stupid. Most of us have, I was a college graduate, as a lot of people are. So, we could have an opinion every now and then that might matter, and maybe you should listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Is Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time? Please come forward.
Good evening.
Hi.
My name is Bill Lingenfelder. I live at 1 Windrush Boulevard, Indian Rocks Beach. And my concern really is not being able to, since it's not my primary residence, it's not able to get a beach access tag to go over to the beach.
Bill,
Yes.
that happens to be on the agenda tonight, so you have to wait till then to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. It's okay.
Okay, so
But
wait
when
then.
it comes up, then you can speak on it,
Okay.
okay? Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to come forward tonight? Commissioner Laverty?
Good evening. It's Jim Laverty, 316 10th Avenue. I just want to thank the city. I have noticed in the last week and a half, as I've been out walking the dog in the morning, down in the triangle, what a fine job the city does in cleaning up the garbage. It is unbelievable now, it seems like, because of the beaches are so packed with people, the garbage is being dispersed everywhere by folks. I mean, they just don't, and the city's got a hell of a job cleaning it up, and I appreciate the good job that they're doing. I'd just like to say that.
We agree too. Anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time? Okay, with that, we're going to close the public comment. We're going to go to reports of the city attorney, Mr. Mora.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. First and foremost, I'd like to, it's rare that I get a moment to speak on anything outside of a legal issue, and I just want to say it's truly a pleasure to work with you. In a time where public service is often maligned, what you've done in your 40 some odd years is truly impressive. Sorry. That said, change to legislative issues. The legislative session just finished up. A lot happened and a lot didn't happen. Of primary concern historically in this community, short-term rentals. The short-term rental bills in preemption this session did not succeed. I'm certain, as it is to rain for about an hour every day this summer, that we will be seeing another version of that next legislative session. One of the primary concerns in this community and others about short-term rentals is how, absent the regulation prior to the June 2011 date, absent such regulation, what it's meant for the transition of residential districts and residential communities. We've argued that this upends, for those of you familiar with the law, Euclidean zoning. There's a famous case, City of Euclid, and it is a Supreme Court case that defines zoning as we know it today. Residential stuff is here, businesses are here. I would submit to you that of greater concern than the short-term rental ordinances is a separate statute that passed this session and is awaiting the governor's signature concerning home-based businesses. It was House Bill 403. It passed under, for a parliamentarian's point of view, somewhat abnormal circumstances. The House had a version, they sent it to the Senate. The Senate had a version of this bill which was friendlier to local governments, if you will. The House was not amenable, and the Speaker and its Speaker were not amenable to that version. They sent it back, and there was a vote, and it passed 19 to 18. 3 members in the chamber did not vote. Some members raised in the Senate. Some members raised this as a procedural concern. House was unwilling to really take it up again, and it's considered passed. It was among the narrowest voting margins this session. Beyond its procedural concerns, what it provides is that if any action to license or otherwise regulate a home-based business. In some ways, this is an outgrowth of the pandemic, as many businesses or business owners and their employees have pivoted to home-based working. So it's not a surprising revelation, but in its scope, it seems a little bit different than just people working from laptops in their homes. To be considered a home-based business, a bill provides that it must operate in whole or in part from a residential property. The employees of the business who work at that dwelling must also reside in the residential dwelling. It may have additional remote employees that do not work at that house, so you can run it out of there. Parking related to the business activities of that business must comply with local zoning requirements. There's a need for the parking generated by the business may not be greater in volume than would normally be expected at a similar residence. You can't change the structure of the residence to accommodate the business, like a drive-through window or things like that. As viewed from the street, the use of the residential property must be consistent with the uses of the residential area that surrounds it. Home-based business may not conduct retail transactions at a structure other than the residential dwelling. However, incidental business uses and activities may be conducted at the residential property. Activities of home-based businesses are secondary, must be secondary to the residential use. All business activities conducted at a home-based business must comply with any relevant local, state, and federal regulations concerning the use, storage, or disposal of corrosive, combustible, or other hazardous or flammable materials or liquids. And it goes on. It provides that home-based business may operate in an area zoned for residential use and may not be prohibited, restricted, regulated, or licensed in a manner that is different from other businesses in a local government's jurisdiction. This may mean, as with all laws, we don't know what it'll mean. There's a lot of speculation. Some say this is just simply memorializing what we know to exist. Accountants operate out of houses, lawyers operate out of houses. There's Etsy shops and all number of things that operate out of homes. So there's one view on this, that is that this is not really a change. I think taken to its more liberal construction or more likely construction, we may see a change were this to be signed by the governor, and I want to make sure you're aware of that because a lot of the discourse surrounding the short-term rental ordinances and history in this particular community revolved around the frustration and anger of residents that they bought to live in a quiet beach community or on a calm cul-de-sac. They didn't buy to live near a business, and how can we not see that that's what this is? And staff, legal, and your commission telling you, we see that, we don't necessarily disagree with you, but there's only so much we can do. And that's true here as well, because in this preemption that's been passed, the legislature has been putting this kind of language in a lot of bills, and it says it provides that a provision allows for any adversely affected current or prospective home-based business owner may challenge any local government action in violation of this new law, and the prevailing party in a challenge may recover reasonable attorney fees and costs incurred in challenging or defending the action, including reasonable appellate attorney fees and costs. And so that is to say, if the city does attempt some action, it may, and it does not prevail, and that's challenged, it may be on the hook for attorney's fees and costs up through the appellate level, which is not normally how it works in the American legal system. Absent a statute or a contract, the losing and winning parties pay their own lawyers, not each other's lawyers. So that's one element, and this is paired with another statute that passed, which were broad-based amendments to the Byrd-Harris Act, which I've discussed in the past at this stage, commissioners, on regulatory actions that fall short of a taking but materially alter a property or, until recently, inordinately burden a property owner's property rights. One of the views of these two things, it was stated if you didn't want this to happen, you could live in a homeowners association where these things are restricted. That was one legislator's take on this. So we will see how that shakes out. Of course, these await the governor's signature. We don't know if there will be a veto or approval. I anticipate, as it relates to the home-based business bill, that was a priority of the speaker. The speaker and the governor being aligned politically, of course. I imagine that will see approval, but we don't know yet. Of course, I'll report to you once we do know. There was also some interest in this particular community concerning a proposed bill that had to do with pedestrian crossings and pedestrian studies. Those RFID, the flashing lights you know along Gulf Boulevard, request a proposed statute that would have changed them to operate on red, be facing in different directions, require studies. That did not pass. It died in the Appropriations Committee. There was, however, an interesting bill, Senate Bill 950, which passed both chambers unanimously, which memorialized or further articulated a statute that passed as far back as 2006, stating that the operators of motor vehicles must maintain at least 3 feet of distance from a cyclist or a pedestrian. And where you're in, let's say, a sharrow, where they're allowed to operate in the roadway and you cannot safely pass at that distance, you need to just wait and keep that distance as you wait behind them. And then there's a requirement that there be awareness campaigns and studies done, et cetera, but sort of just an interesting development. There's another bill that your manager and other administrative staff have been looking into that had to do primarily with requests for proposals and impact fees and the like, but it had added language that would require local jurisdictions to completely evaluate on a regular interval and report on the sustainability and state of affairs for stormwater infrastructure. This was, I believe, I can't say unequivocally because I wasn't tracking it throughout session, language that was added later. If that's wrong, my apologies. But regardless, the local jurisdictions are looking into what this means, of how different this may be from NPDES reporting requirements that exist, and what financial outlay may be required by jurisdictions in future years to do that kind of study. You're talking about scoping infrastructure, scoping pipes, taking inventory of the pipes, and knowing, and not just the pipes, but the sewage infrastructure by and large. So a very active session, a lot that happened, of course, tied to the pandemic, but also in various issues of preemption and otherwise. Outside of that, I continue to work with your staff on a number of other issues that we'd like to see resolved. Now that we are, as people get immunized or otherwise decide their comfortability with the global health and local public health status, we meet in person and have more going on. We will be revisiting some of those lower priority or tabled legislative enactments, and like the sign code and things we've discussed in the past, and starting to advance those. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and again, it's always a pleasure to be here.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the city attorney at this time? Hearing none, Greg, would you like to give your report?
I just have 2 or 3 things. Are there any questions on the quarterly financial reports that we submitted? Let me just follow up on a couple things that Randy said. One of the things that I'm doing is actively working on the proposed budget for next year. One of the bills that he referenced was something that was added in the last few days of the session. It has to do with drainage, and that seems like a pretty simple, harmless thing. But they put in reporting requirements where you have to inventory your drainage, you have to do, so we're in a debate now about what all that requires. The estimate that I'm having to absorb and look at the budget to comply with this now unfunded mandate on this bill is, for our small cities, what it costs us in the $100,000 range to have an inventory, cameras put in pipes, and other things to comply with this law for whatever reason. I don't think it's been signed by the governor yet. I expect it to be signed by the governor. So we'll deal with it. We'll have more discussion with y'all as we move through the budget process. The other thing is that, under the last relief bill that Congress passed, I mentioned this at the last meeting, our city will receive about $1.8 million from that bill. There was some guidance that came out yesterday about that. Dan Carter and I continue to look at the guidance that came out yesterday. For our small town, probably we will come back to the commission with it, because it's a real strict guidelines that what you do with it is that there is with the guidance that came out yesterday, there's an opportunity to use that for drainage infrastructure. And the $100,000 I just mentioned, we may need to have part of that money for that. But at the June meeting, we'll have a discussion about the Harbor Drive North area. Back several months ago, I asked them to engage the engineering firm that we use to look at that area where we have some drainage issues up there. And I think I mentioned y'all different times over the period of time that I worked here that we really need to engage the firm to look long term at the business district, because the business district, there's some pipes in the business district that are really undersized, and there's some issues that are going on there. So I think the 1.8 deal, when we get into discussion about that, hopefully that'll be up to the commission to decide what you want to do with it. Will be to look at areas like that and try to expedite design and study and all of that. But that's really all I have. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the city manager? No. Hearing none, we'll start with Commissioner Hosper. Do you have any comments tonight?
I'm a new graduate of the elected municipal.
Very nice.
Yes, 3 days of training, so now I'm schooled. Watch out.
Vice Mayor McCall.
Not going anywhere. Just real briefly, just want to congratulate Dean real quick. As you know, you helped me out in many situations on many events with the HOA. various trucks and things throughout the years, and really appreciate the support and help of all you guys. Thank you, sir. Sorry. Never stops. I apologize.
Commissioner Hoopnagle?
Two things. I just wanted to recount that, Dean, you're also one of the most patient and even-keeled people that I've ever met. You know, Greg and Dan run a pretty tight financial ship, and we take those city pickup trucks and drive them all over the beach, picking up garbage and stuff. And by the time we go to sell those trucks, you probably don't want to buy one. And because we had a good budget, you know, it was time to replace the pickup trucks, and Dean got this beautiful, brand new pickup truck. I mean, it was lovely. It probably still is, but it was Oktoberfest weekend, and so Dean was there with the pickup truck, and somehow, I don't remember the circumstances, but one of those powdered fire extinguishers got let off inside of his brand new truck. And Dean just looked, and he got this look on his face like, okay. Turned around, got back to work. So, Dean, you're patient, even-keeled. I mean, that's just one of the many fond memories, you know, I have working with you. Wanted also to remember Jack. You know, he really served the city and did a lot of wonderful things to keep us all, you know, happy in the sense that we had someone to turn to for code enforcement. And also Larry Gerwig. Larry, he was a treasure to the community. He recruited me into the Art Center, and I just wrote some thoughts. His sense of community and adventure and his love for the arts, paired with his intense and lasting commitment to volunteerism. His paintings captured his spirit of joy, and he portrayed settings and emotions that could capture one's imagination and transport them to a different place and time. Larry and Linda moved to Largo about a year ago. They got more space for his artwork. Their house had risen in value here, and they got less traffic congestion. But after that move, their hearts and attention still remain tied to the IRB community, and especially their friends at the Art Center. And I just wanted to state that I'll miss Larry and send prayers to the Gerwig family. Thank you.
And is the memorial service is Thursday?
Yeah, there's a...
At Ruth Eckerd Hall, in case anybody wants to know. Do you know what time? It's at 6:30?
Does that sound right, Ed? 6:30?
It starts at 5. The
5.
Visitation is 5.
Okay.
Commissioner Hanna?
Very good. Dean, I can't add to what they've all said, and the best compliment I think you've had tonight is from this guy right here, because in my view, he's one of the most patient and calming people that I know. And so if you impressed him, you've hit it out of the park. But thanks for all your service and all you've done. I was happy to attend Jack Womet's memorial service, and it was, he's truly a great guy, and he truly has done a lot for our city, and I'm glad that we had an opportunity to know him. In his spirit of being Marines, several of his children were all dressed in uniform there because they're also following in steps. So, and also with Larry. Larry's a wonderful individual that has given so much to our town as well. So that's all I got.
Thank you. A little fact about Dean and I is he likes to tell everybody that we went to high school together, except that I'm much older. So, which is only 1 year. We go back a very long way. He is definitely a company man. He's been a great staffer. I know many times in personal incidents, good and bad, Dean has been the first one to call me, and I know he's been like that with other staff people. And I really appreciate you and thank you for everything that you've done for our community. As far as Larry, I've known Larry for many, many years. Awesome guy, great artist. Took it up later in life, and just a super, he and Linda, he enjoyed life, just an awesome person, and we will definitely be truly missed. And with that, we will go to additions and deletions. Do we have any tonight? Hearing none.
Happily, Madam Mayor, there are 2 items on the consent agenda. Item A is approval of the April 13, 2021 regular City Commission meeting minutes. Item B is approval of resolution number 2021-06, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, supporting Safe Streets Pinellas, a Vision Zero effort to eliminate traffic fatalities and serious injuries on the Pinellas Transportation Network and providing for an effective date. These are the 2 items on the consent agenda, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
A motion to approve the consent agenda.
And is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda carries. Now we'll go on to the public hearing, 6A, BOA case number 2021-01, 1615 First Street. Randy, would you read, please?
Happily, Madam Mayor, we are now transitioning from legislative discussions and reports to a quasi-judicial hearing. In a quasi-judicial hearing, Commissioners, you are not making the law, but rather applying the law to establish facts and criteria. The first application before you is for Board of Adjustment case number 2021-01, a variance request from section 110-131 sub 10 sub C to allow for a new dock as an accessory use for property located at the 1615 First Street, Indian Rocks Beach, Florida. The owner is the Calvary Episcopal Church. Before we begin, has any member of this commission had any ex parte communications with the applicant? No. The record reflect all have responded in the negative. Has any member of this commission conducted a site visit for the limited purpose of evaluating this application? That is to say, you're familiar with the property, you've driven by it, but you went to it for the purpose of making a decision tonight?
No.
The record reflect all respond in the negative. With that, will anybody who intends to offer any testimony on this issue, that is, speak before the body this evening, please stand and raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are going to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. With that, Eddie.
Hetty, if you'd like to present the BOA case.
Okay, this is a case where they are asking for a variance to allow a dock in the public, semi-public zoning district. According to our code, docks are not allowed in the public, semi-public zoning district. They're only allowed in single-family and in the medium-density residential and medium-density high. And this is the location of the Calvary Church, and you can see they do have one dock now. We look back, and it was permitted in 2000. I didn't see any other description about why they allowed it. And they're planning to put the dock right next to the other dock that's existing out there. And with that, the staff recommended denial of the request due to the that it is not allowed in the zoning district to allow a dock in the public, semi-public zoning district. The Board of Adjustment did recommend approval 3-1 on this. Do you have any questions?
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Hetty?
I guess what is the purpose of the additional dock? What's it needed for?
They wanted to bring in some people to their church.
Okay.
And the applicant will also have an opportunity to make its presentation as well.
If there are there any other questions before we bring the applicant forward?
Hold on.
Okay.
So there's docks all around, right, on both sides.
Right.
So I guess where does the zoning run into a problem? Is it only on that particular seawall?
Yes. Yeah, that's the only public side.
Just because it's
the rest
against,
is all
because,
residential.
because it's against the church?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anyone else at this time? Okay, at this time, if the applicant would like to come forward and give their presentation.
Say your name and address.
Name and the address.
Sure. My name is Captain Gary Spivak. I live at 306 176th Avenue Circle in Reddington Shores. I'm representing Calvary Episcopal Church this evening. What I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about the mission of the church. We have some slides that I think might be relevant. Could we have those presented?
did include the slides.
Okay.
The commission has seen the slides.
Okay, great. Well, I'll just go from my slides here. I'd just like to talk a little bit about Calvary's mission. You know, we obviously are a church. We run Sunday services, 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. We do Bible study, Sunday school, and youth and adult programs. We've been involved heavily in the community for many years, since 1962 when we were founded. We do the community beach food pantry. We've got over 450 active people on our rolls that we service. And these people come from all over Tampa, St. Pete, Tarpon Springs. And we do 2 times a week, we're servicing 35 to 45 individuals there. So we are a community service organization. We also do Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. We've been carrying about 30 individuals a week, twice a week. For the last 26 years. We also do Narcotics Anonymous, and we've been doing that with 50 individuals per week for weekly meetings for about 10 years. The other things we've been doing for the community, we provide parking for the businesses and for the beach. People voluntarily, or people park in our parking lot during the week, and voluntarily make contributions to our church for the use of the parking. We also provide waterfront access to the community. It's really one of the only places in Indian Rocks Beach where people who don't live on the water can get access to the water. Looking at some of the hardships that we've endured over the last year, the impact to our operations has been pretty severe. Our church services are 1/3 the participation level that they were in pre-pandemic levels. We've canceled our youth and Sunday school programs. We have minimum fellowship opportunities, and our special services, weddings, baptisms, and funerals have been severely reduced by the pandemic. We're looking for a way to improve our opportunities, and this is through outdoors, such as many of the other businesses in town have been trying to do, is to enhance their exposure by conducting business outdoors rather than forcing people indoors. So, this would enable us to do more services outdoors, weddings, baptisms, and funerals. We do a sunrise service now for Easter, which we hold in the parking lot. We had quite a number of people there. I don't know the exact number, but we had a big turnout for that. We'd like to be able to conduct that in a bit more of a better setting, which would be on the waterfront. Anyway, this is all a beautification of the waterfront area. Things that you might want to consider in this is that we are a semi-public property, and so we are having people come onto the property for the use of our waterfront there. There are several homes who have more than one dock, so we wouldn't be the only one in the area with multiple docks into the cove area there. But those are, as the lady pointed out, private residences. The addition of the dock would enable us to resume our more normal operations, and we expect that would broaden our appeal to the community as well. In terms of the community, we've talked about the parking that we do, but that parking lot has also been used as emergency helicopter access for emergency situations. We would expect that the docks would be used in the same way by Pinellas County Police, the Marine units, and anybody else where there's an emergency situation. It does give direct access to emergency responders to the water. So, and also I would like to point out that there's no liability to the city. Calvary Episcopal Church is insured by the Church Insurance Agency of Vermont, which insures us liability-wise for public access as well as member access. Just basically in conclusion, we've done the parking, we've done the dock that we have, which have enhanced the community aspects of our operations. We have invitational signage that encourages people to use our property and to behave properly. We can't always control the behavior of the people who come on our property, but we do have signage out there that that encourages responsible conduct. Outside of that, we can't do much about that. We request that the commission grant our request for the variance so that Calvary can improve our outdoor worship opportunities, increase our community involvement, and also improve community waterfront access to the waterfront. Anybody have any questions for me?
Do any of the commissioners have any questions? Bill?
Currently, you have a couple of docks there, right?
We have one dock, sir.
How is that being used? Just
we do use that. There, parishioners do dock there from time to time. We have some people who dock there on a regular basis. So, but we also have parishioners who dock there to come to church services or to hold other, to have a picnic on the docks there now. And we envision that the additional dock would provide added space for our parishioners as well as community participation.
Currently, are you renting or offering that current dock as a fee or a donation?
People do make donations to the church for the use of our dock space.
So if I went to bring my boat in and use that, but didn't want to make a donation, there'd be no problem?
Right.
Okay, and the same is planned for the new dock?
Yes.
Okay, so it's an income opportunity as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I have a question. The sailing program for young people used to be at the
church, yes.
Are you considering, I know it's not here anymore, are you considering bringing it back if you have this dock?
No.
Can I clarify one thing?
Yes.
Real quick. When we talk in terms of dock, there is a dock. It has 2 slips. What they're asking for is another dock, 2 more slips. So
correct.
I just wanted to discuss that.
If there are not any more questions for the applicant, I'm going to have you sit back down, and then I'm going to open it up to the public to make comments if they would like to.
Mayor, I didn't get his name.
First name is Gary, G-A-R-Y. Last name is Spivak, S-P-I-V-A-C-K.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Would you, yes, you may come on.
Yeah, right. My name is Bob Lima, and I'm at 960 Starkey Road, 1103 in Largo, and I'm a member of Calvary Episcopal Church. I've been there almost 20 years, and I'm a member of the vestry. My family attends there regularly. My 2 granddaughters, 16 and 15, were baptized there, so I have a pretty good background of what the church does in this community. The pandemic, like everything else, has affected our congregation. The attendance is down, and people we don't know for different reasons. They don't come. Sometimes they come, they don't. So in order for us to accommodate whatever their desire is and whatever their concerns are, our idea was to create an outside chapel, and this is adjacent to the new dock. Be part of the new dock where we can have congregations, we can have baptism, weddings, memorial services, outdoors if people feel comfortable with that, Bible study. But especially for our youth, we have really lost our youth at this point. We don't have, they're not attending for whatever reason. They used to attend, we used to have the sail program coming up for that, one dock that's there now. So what we're trying to do is how do we bring people back and they feel comfortable with it? There's no perfect answer. We try to maintain the IRB community food pantry. So we did some rearrangement on our facilities and increased their facilities 1,800 square feet. We're also building a counter inside of the facility so that people can come in. They don't have to stand outside in the hot weather and come in and be fed. And that's what our job is. It's our mission to feed the hungry. So we've done that. We rearrange our rooms inside the church so that when the AA meets, NA meets, they have the facility to comfortably sit and meet alone and take care of their business. So this is all we're trying to do, is to create that outside chapel adjacent to the dock and provide our people with an opportunity to come back to church so the community can continue to grow. So thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, we'll continue with public comment. Anyone with would like to come forward at this time, please come forward.
Hello, my name is David Blissner, B-L-I-E-S-N-E-R. I live at 1612 First Street, which is directly across from the church. Thanks very much for letting me have the opportunity to speak tonight. I have two reasons for speaking. The second one actually was to try to make sure that the meeting minutes from the last Board of Adjusters meetings were read, in specifically that there were 6 different criteria with which the staff recommended that the church not be allowed to put in a new dock. And the final conclusion, as we heard as well, was that they did not recommend it based on the 5 different things that were listed in here. So that's on page 37 to 38 of 165 pages of the packet for the meeting. The first thing that I wanted to do was to very respectfully request that the commission not approve Father John's request to put in a new dock. And I have several reasons for this. I understand Father John's business and revenue model requests to put in a new dock. And I've actually spoken with him about his business and revenue model in the past. And it's actually brilliant. His donations expected approach to the parking model, reinforced by signage that appears to work fabulously based on the number of people that park at the church and near my home every weekend. Despite the way of accepting donations, the signage is very clear that donations are expected. I can only conclude that the reason he wants another dock is that the operations probably will be working as well for that second dock, because there's 2 sailboats there that are already moored at the church, and they're there all the time. I get up in the morning, I see 2 masts. I go to bed at night, I see 2 masts right out through my bedroom. And they've been there for over a year because I've been home for a year. And as we heard earlier tonight, they are paying some type of enumeration in order to be docked there. The plan to build a new dock, as these gentlemen have said, is specifically intended to increase traffic at the church. In a situation where we can't handle the traffic we have now. As I previously mentioned in a past commission meeting, my family's quality of life has been significantly degraded by the parking situation across the street from my house. I believe, based on what I've heard tonight and I heard at the Board of Adjusters meeting, that in fact another dock will just increase traffic that we can already not handle. To give the city credit for the work that they did, and I appreciate it, I just want to go through those points again. The property is located in a public, semi-public zoning which does not allow for docks as permitted as an accessory use. That's the first thing that came out of the code analysis. The applicant did not create any special conditions or circumstances. It's the second point. Granting variances would confer special advantages to the applicant, and it would allow for a dock to be constructed in a district that does not permit docks as an accessory use. Denial of this variance would not deprive the owners of the use and enjoyment of the properties and would not cause undue hardship for the applicant. Denial of the variance would not prevent the applicant from reasonable use of their land, and granting the variance would not be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of subpart B. This falls into special treatment. Based on the variance review criteria, section 2-15, the staff recommends denial of the request.
May I have you wrap it up now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time concerning this variance? If not, we will close the public hearing. Is there any rebuttal? The staff first, and then we'll go to the applicant. Staff have any comments?
No.
Do any of the commissioners have any comments or questions to Hetty before I go to the applicant for a rebuttal? Hearing none, would you like to come back up at this time?
Sure. Thank you.
I would like to point out that that the signage that we have there now does encourage donations. That is a fact. And any church that you see in any part of the world exists through donations. Every church in the world tries to be a good community participant, and we try to do that. There is an increase in traffic. I don't think the dock will increase any traffic on land at all. It's just one dock, and it doesn't have anything to do with traffic on the land. There's traffic there now, and people are going to park there. They're going to park there whether we allow them to park there or whether they just trespass and park anyway. So you really can't help that. I think the people that park there are respectful of the community that they're in, and I don't know, I haven't seen any bad behavior there, but it may exist. But I feel like that a dock really isn't going to make that big a difference, but it is to our parishioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Hearing none, is there a motion? Is there a motion to accept or deny from the commission?
I would motion to approve BOA case 2021-01 for 1615 First Street.
Is there a second? Is there a second from the commission? Hearing none, the motion dies.
Given that it's a Board of Adjustment case and that a order must issue, there's been a motion to approve with no second. The reverse implication of that is there's no motion to approve, but I think it best to establish a more definitive record on a quasi-judicial matter with a vote, an actual vote, as opposed to a vote by silence or some kind of perceived dissent or dissent. So nothing prevents a motion maker or their second from voting in a particular way or compels them to vote that way. That said, I would strongly encourage the body to make a motion and a second for consideration and vote.
Is there a motion? No, it
Well,
died.
that died for lack of a second
for
at the
lack
time,
of a second.
so we need a motion on the floor.
Motion to deny.
Motion to deny, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion to deny on the floor. When we do this, based on past experience and otherwise, I'd like to be very clear. The motion on the floor is to deny the requested special exception use variance, and has been seconded. The vote aye or yes is a vote against the requested relief. A vote requested relief by the applicant, but in support of denial. So we're moving in the negative, so you just have to be mindful of that. So with that, the motion on the floor is as follows. Is there any further discussion before there is a vote of the body?
Is there any comments from the maker?
No, it's just that I have to go with what staff has recommended. And looking at the map, I'm concerned about more items in the water, and it's a very narrow area back there. So I'll go on with whatever staff has suggested.
Commissioner Hofnagel, you have a second. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I think in the case of a variance, we look to the hardship and whether the hardship is of a sufficient character that it warrants to change the law or act in contravention to the law. And in this case, there is an existing dock there, so I'm struggling to find a hardship with the property, not with the church. All not-for-profits have a variety of hardships, but in the instance here where we're looking at a hardship specific to the variance request, I
am feeling that the existence of a dock already would make it hard for me to accept that there's a hardship that would be resolved with an additional dock. And that's what's influencing me to support the denial of this.
Thank you, Ed. Is there anyone else on the commission, Commissioner McCall or Commissioner Hosborough, would you like to make a comment? Anyone? Hearing none, Deanne, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Hosborough. Aye. Vice Mayor McCall.
No.
Commissioner Taylor.
Yes.
Commissioner Hannon.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
By your vote of 4-1, you have voted to deny the requested relief. Thank you very much.
With that, we will move on to agenda item 6B, DOA case number 2021-02, 416 20th Avenue. Randy, would you read the DOA case?
Happily, Madam Mayor, we are now on item 6B. This is also a quasi-judicial proceeding. This is Board of Adjustment case number 2021-02, a variance request from section 94-87 to allow the dock to extend 10 feet beyond the permitted 50-foot dock length for the installation of a new dock for property located at 416 20th Avenue, Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, and legally described as Lot 10 in the west half of Lot 11, 7th edition, a re-revised map of Indian Beach, according to the map or plat thereof, as recorded in Plat Book 28, page 78 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, Florida, parcel number 06-3015-4215-6000100. The owners are Matthew and Laura Campo. The property location is 416 20th Avenue. It has an S single-family zoning. With that, before we begin, has any member of this body had any ex parte communications with the applicant?
No.
The record reflect all have responded in the negative. Has any member of this body conducted a site visit for the limited purpose of evaluating the application before you this evening?
No.
The record reflect all have responded in the negative. With that, will anybody who intends to offer any testimony before this body please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I did.
Thank you. With that, staff may begin with its presentation.
As stated, they are asking for a longer dock. Our normal code allows for 35 feet, and it can go up to 50 feet if the water is shallow. Well, what's happened here is the water at 50 feet isn't even deep enough for a boat. And we have a whole engineering report put together about the water depth and everything. And so that's what he's really asking. He's asking to extend the boat, the dock, out to where the other docks are that are his neighbors. So it would be at 60 feet, which the adjacent ones are too. So. And the staff has recommended approval, the Board of Adjustment recommended approval.
And I believe it was 3 to 1. I believe it was 3 to 1.
Yes, it was 3 to 1.
Do any of the commissioners at this time have any questions for Hetty? Seeing none, Matt, if you would like to come forward as the applicant.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me this evening. Matt Campo, 416 20th Ave. So I've got this whole presentation I did, PowerPoint, 20 slides. I'm going to just kind of go over the basics because if you look at my package, I think it touches on the key things. So I'm just going to touch on the key things. From the image that's on the screen right now, it's not just I want a dock the same length as my neighbors, which they've got a 60 feet or 60 feet. The key things to notice is the shoreline relative to the seawall. There's exposed sand, probably a good 15, 20 feet. Variety of parameters for that. One of the key things is we have a stormwater inlet about 2 houses over, where it's a known fact within all our communities that sediment accumulates in the streets, washes into the waterway, and accumulates. So you have a whole function going on here of accumulation of sediment that triggers the wetlands the mangroves growing, and then over time they start capturing sediment, and then it's just a ongoing process. So our intent here was to seek a variance for the distance rather than try to do dredging or something that would create more environmental negative impacts relative to fish and wildlife and things like that, as well as protecting mangroves. There's one key thing that I think is important when you start looking at the justification or hardship, as well as not setting a precedent. I did an analysis where I looked at all the waterfront properties, about 690 in Indian Rocks, and only 16 had this condition. I was able to do that by taking an aerial at the same date, kind of looking back to what the water level was at that time, and then doing an analysis to see. So definitely a unique situation for mine plus probably about 16 other homes out of 690. Within the variance, I get into like the breakdown of every single criteria. But the things I would like you to take away from this, without going through those criteria, I'll do it if there's specific questions. But really it comes down to what Hetty said, which is you have, at 60 feet, we have about 31 inches of depth based on a survey done for mean low water. Your code is 36 feet at 50, so we don't even achieve that at the 60 feet. Why do we pick 60 feet and not try to go longer? Just basically matching the adjacent docks, which is consistent. On the north end of this same basin, there's a storm inlet, and they have the exact situation. There's a large area that you can clearly tell is shallow. Everybody over there has docks that are in the 55 to 65 foot range. Obviously, there's a pattern here of people trying to achieve this. So why is this a hardship? One of the hardships is the stormwater issue that creates these types of things. That's beyond my control. That's definitely something that's not self-imposed. But also it comes down to why we're here in Indian Rocks, why we bought a house that's waterfront, which we purchased this about a year and a half ago. The hardship is really it's for us to have the same enjoyment of the waterway as everybody else. So I have this scenario of me taking my family out on a boat and coming back, and it's low tide, and we have to sit there and wait for the tide to come up. And you're going to have 16 people out of 690 that have this situation. So without getting into all the breakdowns of each hardship, I just wanted to paint that picture of why we're making this request, versus trying to do dredging or something like that. That would be also have maybe the same result. We'd have deeper conditions, but negative impacts on our environmental conditions and our mangroves. So I'll leave it at that for now. I'll save any other time for if I'm needed. So, thank you.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Matt before he sits down? Wait a minute. See if somebody wants to ask a question. Any questions? Okay, I will let you sit down. Yeah. Anything else for Hetty before we go out and we open public comment? Hearing none, I'm going to open public comment. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this variance? Hearing none, we'll close the public comment. Do you have any other rebuttal or anything that you missed that you would like to say before we go to the commission?
I don't. Again, I kind of relying on the documentation we've already submitted. What I've provided is really the same thing. It would just be me voicing it out. So I'll let you guys discuss this one. So, thanks.
Commission? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve BOA case 2021-02.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Is there any comments from the maker?
No, I think it's pretty evident being so close to that outflow is, and we all know what over time that does, so I think it's legitimate hardship. Thank you.
Commissioner Humphrey? Any comments? No. Do the other commissioners have any comments at this time? Hearing none, Deanne, would you call the roll?
Vice Mayor McCall,
Yes.
Commissioner, oops, I'm sorry. Commissioner Hoopdale,
Yes.
Commissioner Hausberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Hannah,
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Have a good night.
With that, we'll move on to 7A, our other legislative matters. I'm going to turn this over to Greg.
Yeah, this is a request that the city has received, and it's just consideration that the five of y'all have made about a proposed increase to the local option fuel tax. And I'll ask Dan just to briefly give a little background. He's provided staff report. Dan, if you just cover it briefly.
Did everybody hear me?
Yes. We're going to have to move on.
Dan?
I'll start here.
Good evening. Yeah, this request came from Pinellas County. Local option taxes have to have state approval, so they go from the state to the county. as Greg mentioned, the a majority or 50.1% of the cities throughout Pinellas County would have to approve this for it to go forward for the county to continue the process, which would then go on through October. Briefly, there's currently a 5-cent local option fuel tax that is charged throughout the county on gasoline and diesel. It's paid for by anyone that fuels up within Pinellas County area. The county estimates that 1/3 of the money comes from non-residents that come through, similar to the penny for Pinellas, which is another local option tax. We share in this revenue, the current 5 cents, at a rate based on our population. Obviously, we're small amongst the other 23 cities. Believe it or not, we only get about 0.2% of the money, but 0.2% of 1% of the money equals approximately $50,000 a year currently. This increase, they estimate, would generate approximately about $20,000 more a year to the city. The money's very limited, just like all option taxes, like your sales taxes, fuel tax is limited to transportation uses. Any additional increase to it that the county's asking you to consider would of course be limited in the same manner, the additional funds. The city currently uses our money in whole that we get from the current local option, and I believe the manager's proposal, if we get any additional, would be to continue to use it in the same manner, and that use is for street lighting within the city, which has both a rental and an electric cost on an annual basis. So hopefully I kind of covered what's in the agenda memo. I'd be glad to answer any questions if there are any.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Dan Carpenter? No questions at this time.
Okay.
I think that we'll go ahead and go out to public comment, and then we can bring Dan up if someone has any questions. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment at this time? Please come forward.
Yeah, Don House 2104 Beach 12. That Tesla Model X in the parking lot's mine, and I got a Cybertruck order to replace my F-150, so you ought to get the county to bump it to 50 cents. We ain't got more money. Thanks.
Thank you, Don. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward at this time?
There won't be anybody else that will.
No? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment. With that, do the commissioners have any other questions for Dan? I did reach out to the county administrator, Barry Burton, and I asked him to give a little bit of history, and so I will just read to you what he wrote to me. He said, on January 1st, 2007 was the initial levy of the 9th cent. The last time the local option fuel tax was increased, the local option fuel tax was first implemented on September 1st, 1985 at 4 cents. The state increased the maximum levy to 6 cents in 1985, and the county then increased to the new maximum of 6 cents, which was effective on September 1st, 1987. So in 2007 was the last time that this tax was increased until today, until the discussion today that has been given to all of the city governments to make a decision on their thoughts on the gas tax. So I just wanted to add that so you would have a little more history on the tax, when it was started, and when the last increase was. I am going to look for a motion on this agenda item. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion on the local gas tax?
I'll make a motion to approve the local option fuel tax.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any, would you like to make any comments on this at this time?
I mean, I think it's a good idea to have another money in the coffers, so, and it's a small percentage.
Okay. Commissioner McCall? Any comments?
Not at this time.
Okay. Anyone else who would like to make a comment at this time? Hearing none, Dan, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Whitfield?
No.
Commissioner Hanna?
No.
Commissioner Houseman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McCall?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes. Motion carries. We will go on now to 7B, ordinance number 2021-02, first reading. Randy, would you please read the ordinance?
Happily, Madam Mayor, this is ordinance number 2021-02, an ordinance of the City of Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 62, Traffic and Vehicles, Article 2, Stopping, Standing, and Parking, increasing the fee for parking violations, restricting the hours of parking on the city's beach accesses, amending the requirements for securing a resident parking permit decal, specifying permissible uses of a resident decal, repealing the provision for temporary guest parking permits, amending the fee for replacing a city-issued parking permit, and providing for severability and effective date. This has been a first reading of ordinance number 2021-02 by title only. Commissioners, I want to thank you for your flexibility, in large part because of the recent events of my practice. I did not get to the revised version of this ordinance until earlier today. I was comfortable doing so in part because the ordinance's revised terms do not differ in terms of substance and enforcement mechanisms from what you considered at your workshop and the provisions you made public. What was added to was a whereas clause. In the whereas clause it says, whereas the City Commission has carefully considered this ordinance addressing resource management and amended previous iterations hereof, in response to administrative input, evaluation of factual data, feedback, and comments from the public during multiple public hearings and workshops, and upon each commissioner's own individual policy concerns and discretion. In addition to that whereas clause, there's a series of findings of fact. I won't read them verbatim, but I will highlight what they find. First, it notes the recent trend in the past 2 years of your consideration of a series of transportation and parking-related ordinances, noting particularly the golf cart and low-speed vehicles, the discussions concerning on-street and grass parking previously revisited earlier this year, and similar matters. The finite amount of public parking within the city's beach accesses, noting specifically that there are 73 resident-only parking spots in the city. This was an inventory done by Dean and his team to assist in providing a precise number. We talked about this in broad terms, saying somewhere between 70 and 75, falls right at 73. In those findings of fact, in 5A sub Romanet 1, it says TOAL, T-O-A-L, that's a Scrivener's error that we will address. It's total across 28 beach accesses. There's 61 at the beach accesses, and that's not at any single one, but at the series of them. The 10th Avenue Park, there are 2 resident-only parking spots, 2 at Brown Park, 3 at Keegan Clare Park, 2 at Cole Park, and Indian Rocks Beach Nature Preserve has 3 resident-only spots. Everywhere where you have a resident-only spot, there are also spots available to the public. That is to say, this resource is not being offered to the exclusion of the public at large. Since 2015, the city has averaged an estimated 3,235 active registered voters. Were you going purely by the number of registered voters, which not every person necessarily, every property owner or resident qualifies to be one. However, your registered voter number is 44 times higher than the number of spaces available at 73. The number during the period from 2015 to 2019, you've issued an average of 2,785 parking permits. Roughly 38 times higher than the 73 spots. This emphasizes but articulates with some particularity the scarcity of the particular resource being regulated, which you've addressed in the past at your meetings. In recent years, this also acknowledges the decentralized operation of vacation rentals in residential districts in the city, and how that can have how that particular use and its proliferation contributes to the intensity of contemplated uses in your community and the attempts to regulate thereof. That is to say that this is not a short-term rental ordinance by any stretch, but we have to be mindful of all of the policy issues that are considered here. Since the last meeting, you received from one resident in particular a very lengthy and detailed email setting forth their concerns and potential legal challenges to this ordinance. This particular person owns a lot, or 2 lots rather, in the city, but is not under the construct of the ordinance in its current configuration a full-time resident. There have been a series of appellations, name attributions, that one's for you, Dan, given here, whether it's homesteaded, non-homesteaded, resident, non-resident, primary resident, secondary resident, primary owner, secondary owner. The consistent theme there being the difference in terms of the time spent in the parcel and the subjective manifestation of an intent to make that your domicile or primary residence. That's the distinction being drawn here. That particular resident felt that in the current configuration of this ordinance, where you are regulating a scarce resource, it is hard, if not impossible, to justify why a property owner who is here year-round should have an entitlement to an unlimited number of parking decals, as this allows for, so long as those vehicles are registered to individuals residing at that property, whereas a secondary homeowner who pays higher taxes and is also may otherwise be invested in the community is capped at 1 per lot, 1 decal per lot. Under this construct, every property owner has the ability to get a decal. I want to be very clear on that, because that is not what previous versions of this read. That was one substantive change. You may recall, for those that were not part of this discourse via Zoom, in person or otherwise, at a workshop, the previous version of this ordinance was changed to operate now so that a full-time resident in this construct has an unlimited, has access with proof of proper documentation to an unlimited number of decals. A property owner can now get 1 per property owned. So that is to say, let's say there are 4 siblings who own the same property, only 1 decal will issue to that property. They will work out between themselves. If a husband and wife, they will pick which vehicle is the vehicle they intend to use and put the decal on that vehicle with the non-transferability provisions in here and otherwise. Another thing that changed from previous versions to the version now on first reading, there was a provision in there that you needed to have the parking permit decal in order to put your boat in at the boat ramp. That's no longer necessary. You still need to be a property owner or resident, and there are means to informally authenticate that if the code enforcement inspector or anyone else has concerns about that from an administrative standpoint. One of the other controversial or areas of focus in this ordinance was previously there was a hang tag program where you would be able to get a temporary hang tag. That has been excised altogether. There is no hang tag, temporary hang tag permit program any longer. In its stead, what we've done is taken out the restriction in the previous drafts against overnight parking on the beach accesses, whether in a visitor spot or a resident spot. And you are now allowed to park up to 3 nights consecutively in a single beach access. If you're here longer than that 3rd night, find another parking spot, another beach access, what have you, or just change which vehicle is there if you have the ability to do so. So those changes were made in direct response to citizen feedback we received in writing, through Zoom and in person, and as was the distinction between property owner and resident and whatever that's being called, to make sure that there is a provision for all to have the ability to have access to that privilege. That particular resident that I mentioned, I had a roughly half-hour conversation with them today. And they continue to express their disappointment in the city's position, making the distinction between its primary and secondary homeowners. And I assured them that I would make that known to you. And in response to the email that they sent with a detailed legal analysis, I provided you in the last week a legal analysis of my own. I did not reach a conclusion because the conclusion at issue is a policy one. It's how do you address this? But I would say the legal analysis before was, what ability, if any, does the city have to make a distinction between residents and non-residents as it has done here. To the extent there are equal protection elements in constitutional law, both state and federal, residents versus non-residents is not a protected class in the ways we think of race, religion, creed, color, sex, etc. So then the constitutional analysis comes down to one of rational basis. Does the policymaker, that's you folks, have a rational basis to justify its decision? I provided you with cases from the Supreme Court of the United States, Florida appellate courts, and other federal and state courts outside of Florida to show you how that analysis goes. The standout case from Florida was the City of Maitland case, where they simply regulated so there would be more access closer to one piece of infrastructure, and had no findings of fact beyond the desire to have that access easier. And the court found that that was not a rational, there was no rational basis to justify that. The balance of the other cases did find the standard cases, an Arlington County case that went to the Supreme Court, and the court found where they were trying to regulate environmental factors and the impacts of traffic on that and otherwise, that was a rational basis. That is to say, reasonable minds may disagree as to how this shakes out. I've told you, and I will tell you, and with each legislative enactment you make, I can't promise you you will not be sued. I can tell you that the individual I spoke with was very firm, confident, and I think forthright in saying that were this to be passed in its current format, that they would bring a legal challenge. I don't say that to somehow threaten you. It's just disclosing a fact, and they have the ability to do so. I can't tell you that if a certain provision is or is not put in there, you unequivocally would avoid that suit, or if that suit were to come, that you would unequivocally win. You go to a court, and that's the process. If that's where this goes. But all of that to say, and I know that this is a longer-winded introduction to a fairly innocuous ordinance as ordinances can go. Not to say that the rights at issue are trivial, but innocuous in other respects. I want to make sure that I'm very clear about this. The five of you who sit around me now are the policymakers. I am not a policymaker. I give you advice. I cannot compel you to do anything. I cannot bar you from doing anything. The same is true of your city staff, your manager, your planner, finance director. We give you advice. You make decisions. You set the policy. So as it exists in its current form, it is for the five of you to discuss how you think you should proceed as a matter of policy. I've spoken probably far longer than necessary at this point, so I will yield to any questions you have and allow you to discuss this as you see fit.
Does anyone have any questions for the city attorney at this time? Commissioner Haldane?
Randy, it's not a question, but gratitude for the legal research that you did. It helped me to understand the issue better. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Can we ask a question?
Well, I'm going to go to public hearing.
Oh, okay. I didn't know we could
Public
ask.
comment,
Yeah, at that
yeah.
time.
You can come up with public comment. Greg, would you like at this time add anything to what our attorney said?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Any of the other commissioners, do you have any before I go to public comment? At this time, Don, come up for public comment.
Don House, 2104 Beach Trail. So right now, the beach accesses do not allow overnight parking unless you have a decal. If I'm reading this right, anybody can park overnight for up to 3 days without a decal. Am I reading that right?
As constructed, yes, but they could not park in a decal required spot. They would have to park in a.
They would have to.
If they do not have a decal, there are public spots where
Right.
they can be.
Okay.
And that accommodation or provision was changed. And I know you know we don't typically do this, but given the audience left and an issue and attention being given to this, that was done to accommodate a consistent concern expressed about people visiting and caring for elderly members, especially in the pandemic, and finding an ability to park lawfully.
This is going to take the wisdom to solve it, okay? So, but like right across the trail from me, the Hawksbill, which was, he said he was going to sell them as individual townhouses. It was also the one person, and they're doing it as Airbnb, the 4 units. So I anticipate that there'll probably be parking issues there. So they get one parking space as, it's an Airbnb. Let's go to Cameron Cove, okay? Those are tax deeded 1 week at a time, correct? Am I mistaken or not? And they have, what, 40 units in there? I'm guessing 40, 45, something like that, times 50 weeks. That's 2,000 units. I bring this up because I have my sailboats parked on the beach. I actually met a guy who had a unit there for 1 week, and he lived in Hillsborough County, and he bought it so that he got a parking sticker for his sailboat for the beach. Now, I'm just extrapolating that. If 2,000 people put their boats on the beach, that's horrendous. I've been watching, it hasn't happened, but what happens here with 2,000 tax deeds, if they're all individual tax deeds, what happens with that? I mean, we're talking individual units, they all have a tax deed, there are 2,000 potential one permit things. 1 times 2,000 is 2,000, okay? So when we're looking at Cameron Cove or the one across the street from me, when there's 4 townhouses that are going to be run as an Airbnb, the units there, I don't know how anybody gets a parking permit. Now I can see at Cameron Cove, because they have a tax deed for 1 week, they can theoretically get a parking permit, correct? Am I right, wrong? You know, and so what, wisdom of Solomon, guys, we're going to have to keep working on this, okay? But at least we're making some good progress. Thanks.
Is there anyone else who would like to come up at this time concerning this issue?
I couldn't even follow that. Nancy Obarski, 708 Beach Trail. Mine's a lot simpler. Thanks for revisiting this ordinance. You saved me from implementing what I refer to as the Nancy Obarski parking plan. And it consisted of me taking both of our cars every morning and driving them down to the 8th Access and parking them there. And leaving them there all day. And leaving them there 2 hours after sunset, so 2 people are deprived of seeing the sunset. Taking the cars and putting them back in the garage, which was still in keeping with your ordinance, but it also gummed up parking spots at the 8th Avenue Access. We do not have parking, and actually, I tried to create a problem. That's what I tried to do. I tried my damnedest to create a problem. I couldn't create a problem. So I guess what I'm begging you guys to stop this kind of stuff. I mean, as a beachfront property owner, honest to God, I mean, I had to replace my roof a second time. My cabinets are being held up with boards. I got the Army Corps threatening to take away the beach, and then this parking thing. And it's just too much. I mean, honestly, what Don said about the Airbnbs, I can't tell you the number of people that contact me that would love to buy my property for an Airbnb. And if you keep it up, that's what you're going to have, an entire beach full of Airbnbs. One of the things in this ordinance that I take great exception with, it says, it was in the memo from the city attorney to the city commission on April the 6th, it said, revised finding of fact to acknowledge scarcity of parking as a resource along the city's beaches and particularly within the city's beach accesses. And then I guess tonight's reading, the one that you were referring to that you finished today, refers to studies and reports conducted by the city administration. I'm definitely going to request those because, you know, I didn't even know this parking was an issue until this whole ordinance blew up. So, you know, I would take great exception to that, and I think I know the reason why that's in there, because that does give you a little bit of teeth to be able to discriminate or do whatever you want to do there. But I'm putting it on the record right now that I do not agree with that statement, and that's that. The beach belongs to all of us, and you know, honestly, this ordinance served to divide the beach. I mean, it's beachfront property owners versus the other side. And that's not something we want to do here. So knock it off. Thanks.
Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time?
Bill Lingenfelder, Windrush Boulevard, Indian Rocks Beach. My primary residence is in Plant City. I do pay taxes, of course. I'm homesteaded in Plant City, which I actually pay more taxes than probably primary residents here. My concern is that my wife has a car, I have a car, we both have 2 scooters, and for the last 10 years we were able to get a parking tag for the beach access. And this year, from what I understand, we only are able to receive 1, which makes it a hardship because we're basically over here from May to December, off and on. We go back and forth. Sometimes my wife's over here for a week or 2, and sometimes we're over here together. Sometimes I'm over here. So it'd be a hardship just to have 1 permit. And also, there's times that I don't take the car. I'll just take a scooter. And in the past, I would have a decal for my scooter. Which brings up another thing. I mean, a lot of times when I did have a decal, I would park in the golf cart area, which I'm not sure if that's allowed or not. I hated to take up a space, but I would do that, and I need to probably find out tonight whether I'm able to do that, in the future. But I don't understand why my family and everybody else who's not primary residence here is being penalized since we pay the same amount of taxes, while we're penalized who are only able to get, I guess at this point, just one permit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment.
Is there anyone in the Zoom?
No,
Yes.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Myra Tritle, 2504 Gulf Boulevard, Indian Rocks Beach. My comment on this is I don't understand why you're taking away the temporary beach access hang tags. They seem to work fine. There was no issue with it. Then people who did not have one of those could not park. Now you seem to be changing it where anybody can come and park no matter whether you have one of those tags or not. The beach access hang tag seemed like a simple solution. You get one once a year, and that's it. But now you're going to open it to everybody, even without a temporary tag. I don't understand that. Can that be explained?
Thank you, Myra. If there isn't any other, is there any other public comment? Because then what I'm going to do is I'll go to Greg or Randy, who would like to, if there's anything you would like to address on any of the comments that were made today.
I see no other participation, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Matt. Greg, would you?
We've talked about this for a year. I don't have any more comments.
Randy, do you want to address any of the comments that were made?
In as much as a resident just inquired about the hang tag point, I echoing the manager's sentiments would say that was the product of a lengthy discussion and back and forth and part of the policy making process. Previously, there were other restrictions put on the hang tags, and then the consistent feedback, with the exception of a small contingent, was that the hang tags were unnecessary, an inconvenience, and an imposition because residents could not always get them when they needed them. Let's say if you had somebody arrive on a Friday night unexpectedly in response to an emergency situation, you'd not be able to get one, and it created unnecessary government bureaucracy, if you will, or further administration. So that was the genesis of that revision. Otherwise, I don't believe I have anything else to add at this point, Madam Mayor, and I would defer to the policymakers.
Is there anyone?
May I say something else, please?
Myra, I apologize, but we have closed the public comment at this time.
He did not answer the question that I had. That was not my question.
Okay, I do apologize that he did not answer your question. I'm sorry. Ed, do you have any comments at this time? Any of the commissioners?
I do have some prepared comments that I would like to make, and so please bear with me. Over the past month, I've thought more deeply about some of the issues we're addressing tonight, about residency and community and our responsibility to manage a peaceful togetherness on this island that we call home, vacation, business site, investment, or weekend getaway. We're on this beach by choice, and it's as close to paradise as I've found. And most of us share a desire to preserve and protect our island community. I've learned that such bonds don't lend themselves easily to definitions of residency, homestead, and the like. And I would like to thank the various members of the public and my fellow commissioners, especially Joe. You enabled me to understand that this parking issue is not as simple as it appeared to me at the outset. Again, this Saturday I was stuck in traffic. It took about 40 minutes to get down Gulf Boulevard. And I had time to reflect on the profound changes that have come to our community. Some of it is good and some of it is challenging. And whatever one's opinion, it's clear to me that Tallahassee's deregulation of residential zoning laws has forever changed our town's footprint. Through emails and phone calls, I met folks who spend only a few weeks a year here, and yet their hearts and souls are partially or fully rooted in the sands of Indian Rocks Beach. So, first of all, I'd like to apologize if I offended anyone in attempting to control the beach parking problem by reducing access to non-full-time residents. I supported an effort to try to control the disbursement of passes to the short-term rental operators, and I realized that that really only created frustration and division. The dangerous congestion that we have will not be solved by decals. We have too much traffic. We have dangerous traffic in our residential areas, and we have a perennial parking problem. Those are issues that we seek to address, and I think it'll be better done outside of the parking decal ordinance. The line between resident and non-resident is not as clear-cut. To me, it's obvious from the legalisms in this version of the ordinance. I think that the stated definitions of primary resident and non-primary resident creates a set of legal gymnastics that may be unnecessary and potentially divisive. And so I would like to reorient this ordinance to be more inclusive and seek to limit the number of decals to 2 per parcel rather than its current focus on resident definitions. Thank you.
Are there any other comments for the commission at this time, or any comments to Ed and the comments that he made? Joe?
Yeah. Just as Greg mentioned, I know we've been going over this for a year for honestly 61 parking spots. And I agree with Ed. I didn't think, or I wasn't, I guess, a fan of this in the beginning, just because a lot of the, I guess, discourse we've had and people in the, have expressed, definite opportunities as far as mobility, things of that nature that we didn't address initially. I do like some of the provisions in this that, it does allow everyone access, to use Randy's word, as the privilege that we live here in paradise, right? We're talking about 61 spots at the beach. That's, it's a hard thing to complain about, in my mind, given everything else. I am in agreement with Ed. I don't really make determinations between how long you spend here, how you file your taxes. We've got very community activists that have been part of the HOA, been part of A2K, that volunteer, year in and year out when they're here. So, in my particular opinion, I haven't agreed with the division of, I guess, resident and non-resident since the beginning. Thank you.
Commissioner Hannah or Houseburger, would either of you like to make a comment at this time?
You know, I guess I know that we're now at the point of called beating a dead horse, right? So, but it's like trying to please everyone, and it keeps getting harder. It's like I walked all those beach accesses, and there's way more parking, public parking, than there is permitted parking. I mean, some of them have like a dozen more spaces than the permitted spots. So it's not like you would drive down there, even if you wanted to take 2 cars, sir, there'd be one for the permitted and one for a non-permitted space. But there's parking there. Now, will it be there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? I doubt it, you know, on a Saturday. It's just not gonna be there. But it's like we're trying to measure grains of sand here. There's 73 total permitted spaces in a 2.5-mile stretch. And everybody feels so taken away from if they can't park in a permitted spot. And I know that a lot of us, we just walk to the beach. We don't even park over there. And even though I have a permit because I live here, I probably will never use it. And I think there's a lot of people like that. They won't end up parking there. That's my 2 cents.
I just want to mention before Phil and Pauline that at this moment there are 1,308 resident parking decals that have already been issued for 73 parking spaces. I think that's an important comment to make. Phil?
Yeah, I agree with Ed and Joe in terms of this has gone on crazy. I mean, we're talking about a 3-cent sticker. I know it's more deeper than that. It's what it represents. Like you, I walk to the beach, and my wife doesn't even have a sticker, even though she's entitled. She walks everywhere, so that's another story. You know what I'm talking about. So I don't have a problem with that because the way it's going to fall out is you got 73 spots. The higher and the more stickers that you have out there, the less opportunity you're going to have to get a parking spot. You know? So if it's not trying to say somebody is better than somebody else or pays more taxes, that's not the point here. You still get the other services. But to move this thing along, and I don't have a problem give anybody 2 stickers per parcel and be done with it and try to solve the problem. It's not going to solve the traffic. We've got a traffic issue there, but it's going to make people feel good. Yeah.
Ed?
So the change that I was proposing does affect the current code because the way the code is written now, if you are in something called a primary resident category, there's really not a limit to the number of decals that you can receive. Whereas if you fall into the category of property owner, you may only receive 1 permit. So I was suggesting that there's a give and take on both sides. There's very few number of people who have there's very few primary residents who have more than 2 parking decals. Greg sent a report out. I think there were 30 or 40 residents who had more than 2 stickers. So it's a very small number. So the proposal is to cap all residents and property owners at 2 parking permits. So I believe the impact will be the issuance of additional decals. I think whether we have 1,300 or 2,000, it doesn't necessarily change the likelihood that you'll be stuck in traffic and have a hard time finding a parking spot at the beach. But if it serves the purpose of not making people feel like second-class citizens, which is some of the feedback I received from people, I would be in support of that because the intention here was not to make people feel disrespected, unwanted, or in any way less than primary residents. And so that's why I was proposing to cap it at 2 per parcel, regardless of whether you're a primary resident or a property owner.
going to look for a motion at this time if there aren't any questions, and if you would like to make an addition or changes.
I'm not sure that I can make a motion fully to amend the ordinance, but I would make a motion to approve this ordinance as amended by limiting the number of passes to 2 parking permits for both residents and property owners. Randy, is that sufficient for your guidance?
Procedurally, I think that works. You're proposing approval of the ordinance subject to an amendment. I think that the better, cleaner approach is to first try just a motion to amend in that manner. I agree with the point that you're making, that you don't have, and here is the strike through and underline of what that amendment looks like. And I can tell you, commissioners, and looking at the ordinance, what you're looking at is, and for those participating in person or via Zoom, in the draft circulated earlier today, it's pages, you're looking at the area beginning about a third of the way down on page 5 of 9, and going on to that second page, there's a distinction between, it says application for parking permits, and it has a sub 1 and sub 2. What this would look like is combining sub 1 and sub 2 to say any owner of a parcel, with mind of some of the comments raised earlier tonight and seeing how that may be navigated, but any owner of a parcel may have up to 2 parking decals per parcel owned. What I would suggest to you is that the way that would likely look is that there will be a must produce and may also produce the following in supplement to. So you must produce a proof that you own that parcel, you know, and so the things that you're seeing presently in D sub 2, where you have to have a copy of the appraiser's records identifying the applicant as a property owner, a copy of the Pinellas County Tax Collector records identifying the applicant as a property owner, and continuing to make provision for the corporate entity preceding 2 items, having those and proving that the applicant is in fact, that the applicant is a principal of that corporate entity, and that principal is the person identified. Having that likely there, and then perhaps showing that the vehicle for which they seek a decal is one registered to that person. So it would look something like that. Of course, I recognize and understand with all legislation, and pretty much anything in the world, the devil's in the details. But I would say that capturing the core policy element of the proposed amendment, should it be made, should a motion be made to amend in that fashion, it would likely resemble something along those lines and not require amendment outside of that particular section.
Let me start with Ed. So you're going to make a motion.
I think Phil had a question.
I want to finish with you first.
I was going to make a motion to amend as Randy described, but Phil had a question, so I was going to wait.
Just one real quick question to Don's point about the McCameron Cove or wherever, where they've got, you know, individual deeded properties for 1 week. I don't see how we can handle that. That almost looks like something's going to have to handle separately, because that means everybody would get 2 parking spots, even though you own it for a week. And chances are they're not going to be able to produce some of this other stuff.
Well, that's what it sounds like to me, is that we're going to put 5,000 decals out there for 73 parking spots.
Try the lottery on Saturday night.
Yeah,
Good shot.
I'd have a better shot at that.
You know, I think that what I would say is, of course, I will work with your management and administration, 1, to be better grounded in that fact, and 2, to see if there is a policy solution. I would also add to that there's a certain point where you cannot legislate to every single eventuality, but you do have to recognize that eventualities exist as potential eventualities, if not probable, they're possible. And so the acknowledgement of that is one we will attempt to reconcile, but I think more narrowly, in the interest of meaningfully advancing this, I cannot tell you as I sit here now what that might look like. That may require, as this has done through the workshopping process in the past, the the joy of each of you having another chance to speak with me between now and next meeting. I don't know if you'll have that distinct honor, but regardless, I think that there's a proposed amendment or the potential for a proposed amendment that should be considered separate from that particular concern.
Greg, a quick question. So, if this were to pass with the amended ordinance, the details that you have already given out, they would stay this year, and then you would make it change it for next year. Is
Yeah,
that?
the details of this year are good for a 2-year period.
Or after 2 years, so
Yeah, and that's something, just for the record, I like to put in the records, so if everybody has the same impression. I looked today at 1 o'clock, we issued 1,308 resident parking decals, 1,003 resident addresses have received 1 decal, 235 resident addresses have received 2, 56 resident addresses have received 3, 11 resident addresses have received 4, 2 resident addresses received 5, and 1 resident address have received 6. And the public acknowledged too that, like Brad just clearly said, it's a policy decision, not a decision. I'll look at that based on the ordinance and what I hear you want us to do is that the individuals that have already received the details in the ordinance, they're good. And between now and the time that you do the amendment, people can still come in and get details based on our current ordinance and stuff like that. Just so you know.
Makes sense.
Are there any other questions before I go back to Ed? Commissioner Hoffman? Okay, Commissioner Hoffman.
So I'm going to make a motion to amend the ordinance. I want to get the subsections and sections right. So section C, section D, subsection 1, I'm adding another item sub 4, which would say primary residents are entitled to 2 parking permits. And then I'm modifying subsection 2, saying property owners seeking their 2 parking permits per parcel. So, Randy, you may find a more elegant way of doing that, but the intention of my motion is to equilibrate all classifications of owners and residents to a limited number of 2 decals.
I think your articulation is clear in terms of the desire for all parcel owners to have uniformly access to 2 or entitlement to 2 parking decals with proof of ownership thereof. And at this point, it would be to this body if there's a second or a desire to endorse the proposed amendment.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
On the amended motion. Is there any comments from the maker?
Thank you for your patience, and I hope that this deliberative body gets it right. I know we don't always get there the first time, but I think that's the way the legislative process should work.
Satisfied.
Any other comments from any of the other commissioners?
So to be clear, once we go to calling the roll, you're voting only on the proposed amendment at this time. Only on the proposed amendment. There will be a separate vote held on the ordinance, whether in the form as amended or not amended, subject to this vote. Commissioner McCall, does that make sense? So first, what you're going to do right now, there's a motion on the floor that's been seconded to amend the ordinance to allow for uniform access to 2 decals. If that passes, you will then at some point consider a motion to approve the ordinance as amended. If it fails, you will have a motion to consider it either subject to future other amendments or in its current form. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. So the motion on the floor is for Commissioner Hoofnagel's proposed amendment.
Deanne, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Hesper?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McCall?
Yes.
Commissioner Hanna?
Yes.
Commissioner Hoofnagel?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
No. Motion carries 4-1. With that, we will go to work session item.
Madam Mayor, so now we've had the proposed on the amendment. The amendment has carried, so the ordinance is now amended though without the specific text as we sit here now, it is substantively amended so that all parcel owners will have uniform access to 2 parking permits. Now there's a discussion on the ordinance as amended. If there's any, you do not have to have some strong, long, lengthy opinions, but you have to have a separate vote on the ordinance now that it has been. Does that make sense, Madam Mayor?
With public discourse?
On
The amendment hasn't been heard by the public.
Yeah.
We did have public comment, and I did ask everyone to come up,
but-
but now that we're going to have this on the original, we can go to public comment again.
The ordinance has been amended, and there's no problem with having public discourse on the ordinance as amended, and it would be appropriate as the comment was previously taken on a version of the ordinance that does not exist. That would be the appropriate measure before there is a second vote on a vote on the ordinance as amended, yes. So,
Is there any comments on the very first, as far as the commission? Are there any comments on the original ordinance?
I have an idea.
Wait, can you wait,
Oh.
please, so that we get this all straight?
Sure.
Before I thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any comments on the original ordinance? Hearing none, we'll go to public comment.
Don House 21 Fort Beach Trail. Instead of by tax ID or parcel ID, how about by address? That way, if it's Unit 4 and it's 50 Unit 4 is that same one that's sold every week. Unit 4 only gets it under Ed's thing of 2 decals. It's by address. I've never had a decal. I've been there 20 years and I can walk to the beach, so I don't care. So anyway, I just think it's I just don't want my kids when they come down, they can't park overnight. I got involved in this because of overnight parking in the beach accesses. But anyway, how about by address instead of by folio number? Just a thought.
Thank you, Don. Ron?
Rod Baker, 364 Bahia Vista Drive, Indian Rocks Beach, Florida. Couple things. Ed, which daughter do I give a sticker to? I got 2 daughters.
Just as a point of order, there's not a division between them.
I think y'all are missing the point. It's resident parking. There is a difference between people who live here full time, who have homesteaded, who put everything into the city, and those that have investments and have vacation rentals. That's why you have resident parking. So I think you're missing the point by just giving everybody. And if you're bowing down to vacation rental pressure on this, then you're dooming the future of the city. That's all I have to say.
Any other public comment at this time? If not, I'm going to close the public comment. Is there anybody on Zoom? Matt, is there anyone on Zoom?
he's asking.
I just released the ability to unmute yourself, so would the Zoom audience like to unmute yourself and make a public comment at this time?
Just give it like 10 seconds, Madam Mayor.
That's fine.
This is Myra Tridle, 2504 Gulf Boulevard, Indian Rocks. My original question was referring to the temporary tags that we had for overnight beach parking originally that you have done away with. Not the ones you were putting in where you had to go to City Hall to get them, during City Hall hours. We used to have the passes, they were the hang tags that our visitors could use to park overnight on beach access. That was my question, is why or did we even do away with those? They seem to work fine, there was never an issue with those. As far as the stickers go, I only have 1 sticker. That's fine, I don't have a problem with that. So my children would use the temporary pass, but now it seems to be open to everybody. And with this sticker now, can we as owners park in any parking place, or is that decal just for that decal space?
Thank you,
Thank you.
Myra. Are there any more comments on Zoom? Matt?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We will close the public comment. Is there anything that you would like to address?
Again, as a function of parliamentary procedure, I just want to explain. This body has now voted to amend the ordinance in the form discussed exhaustively. You will be voting on the ordinance as amended when you next move, unless one of you has some other proposed amendment. I apologize if any member of the public feels that their concern or inquiry hasn't been sufficiently addressed. Suffice to say, the how and why of the particular hang tag inquiry is a matter that has not been discussed at any length tonight. It has been established in this and previous versions. That was as the city evaluated the various ways that it could streamline its administration of parking without creating unnecessary or redundancies, unnecessary administrative process or redundancies. That was one of the things it eliminated, and I apologize if that's somehow inadequate. It is the explanation at this time. As it relates to anything further, I stand ready to answer any legal questions you may have on the ordinance. As the policymakers, the ordinance before you presently has been amended so that each property owner or parcel owner, however that may be distinguished, has an entitlement to should this ordinance pass in its current form.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to? I have a question. Yes. How long has permitted parking been around? How long has it been here on IRP?
Manager, do you have any insight on the genesis or origins of permanent parking on the beach?
I do not.
I can tell you
it almost seems like
does it precede your tenure here?
Yeah, I started 8 years in the field.
A long time.
That's a scientific number. He said a long time.
Give that guy a retirement badge again.
It's been here a long time.
At least 42 years.
Spartacus had one on his chair.
It's been up here a long time. There's always been issues associated with the issuance of decals. That's why over the years, everybody was included. It was, you can get an unlimited amount of hang tags. It's kind of like the Wild West. And the result is we still have, what is it, 71? What is it?
73.
73.
But
it predates my appearance in the village.
And what happens if we just get rid of it entirely?
Well, let me say this about let me give you a couple of examples. About 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we decided to go with more decorative details. It's quite a big mistake I've ever made in my life. Because we literally have people that come in City Hall saying, I've never gotten a decal, we'll never use it. It's got the palm tree on it. I want one of those. And that's kind of what we get to. So to specifically answer your question, I've lived here long enough where I know that people love 2 or 3 things about the East Rock Beach. They love the beach for all the reasons that it said. They love the solid waste workers and they love parking details. And if you think you had trouble with boats and manatee zones, try to eliminate details and see what happens. It will not go well.
Okay, then.
It's not broke, don't fix it.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Dan, would you like to call the roll? Commissioner Housework? Yes. Vice Mayor Paul?
Yes.
Commissioner Hannah?
Yes.
Commissioner Blumenthal?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
You voted no on the amendment, but you can vote however you wish at this time. There's nothing that binds your vote either way. It is your legislative discretion how you vote at this time.
No. Motion carries 4-1.
This has been approved on first reading. When we get to second reading, an ordinance is advertised in the paper and by title only. At that point, of course, the amendment will need to follow on a more expedited schedule than what you saw today. And for that, again, I apologize. And if it gets pushed, then you'll be informed. That's all.
I just think that the point about the address was something that's probably worthwhile for you to think about.
Thank you.
Are there any work session items? We are on agenda item number 8 at this time. Hearing none. Other business. Two things. Just want to let everyone know that I will start Monday with the mayor on the first Monday in June, which is June 7th from 4:30 to 6. I also would like to make a comment that as long as I'm the mayor of this community, there will not be a time when any commissioner is singled out. And I want to make sure that that's on record so that everybody knows that. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.